Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Behind the Veil. Today, I'm so happy to be joined by Ashii. Assalamu alaikum, Ashii. How are you?
So I'm good. I'm excited to be here with yourself, and yeah, it's an honor, Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah, it's an honor for me because I haven't seen you in such a long time. And you were one of the first persons who had invited me for a face-to-face event for Muslim women in business. And that was such an amazing time for me because
Yeah.
yeah, alhamdulillah. Like I had hosted events before, but I felt like the event that you organized in Manchester was just like top level, high quality in terms of service for women. Like you had chosen a beautiful venue, you booked me a hotel, I brought my daughter with me, and it gave her that glimpse of like what mommy does. And I
Yeah, it's
think
so important.
subhanAllah, like she saw you on Instagram and she told me, oh, is that the lady that we went to see in Manchester that organized that event? And I was like, yeah, you remember, subhanAllah. And my daughter is not the type who remembers anything. Like I took her to Disneyland Paris a couple of years ago and she literally forgot about that.
No,
Can
no,
you?
it's nice, but I think it's just to see them see you in action, and it's like there's mommy doing because they get that we're working, but they don't understand how. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think she had fun like with all the kids parks and whatever else was going on. But Alhamdulillah, I'm glad that she remembered. That feels nice to me. Yeah.
Yeah, Alhamdulillah. I think that you embodied the quality of ihsan in that event, which is making things beautiful because you had so much planned for everyone. Like the food was good for us. There was things for the kids as well. Like you had those gift packs and everything. So that was perfect. Now people are probably wondering, but what does Ashii does? Who is Ashii? What's the deal? So do you want to start by telling the listeners what you're up to? Like who are you and what do you do?
I'm the CEO and founder of InnerWork. So I found that when I came into this industry, there were social media coaches, healing coaches, but there wasn't a one-stop shop. Like if I wanted business help, I'd go one place. If I needed healing, and I was like, right, there's a gap. And I love finding gaps in the market. It's a good skill, but then it's not because you get caught up in it. So I found that a lot of women, I mean, I've been helping women since 2015 build a business online. But a lot of them, especially Muslim sisters, struggled with, and I love the name, unveiling their true potential because they had, their trauma holding them back, they had limiting beliefs, and most importantly, they wanted to build a business but not show their face. So I was one of the first to do that with product, and then I moved into services, and that's where inner work started. So Alhamdulillah, like, yeah, that's what we do. We do business coaching, social media management if you need someone to take over, or if you need healing like shadow healing, NLP, and that kind of stuff. Yep, that's a
Amazing.
mouthful.
Yeah, and that's a lot, subhanAllah. And I can hear a lot of similarities between what we do at the Healed Sister and what you do as well. Like this notion of having a holistic space for Muslim women to find what they need, not just in terms of business strategy, but also in terms of healing. Because I'm sure you're doing this because you know that if a woman is struggling with her emotional and mental health, it's going to be really hard for her to develop her business,
Yeah.
right? So I find that entrepreneurs all have a story that lead them to creating the business that they have created. You've told us a little bit about that, but what was it about your life in particular that led you to creating this company for yourself?
So I came into the online. So I had my son who's mashallah 9 now. You didn't meet. He wasn't at the event. He was at home, but he was. I had him, and I was always saying that I'm gonna go back to work once I've had him. And I remember he was around 3 months. And someone came to me. My in-laws, one of the in-laws came to me and said, "Hey, actually, do you want to sell aloe vera products?" I was like, "Yeah, sure, go on," you know. And I was like, I bought the pack, and even then, £220 was expensive. I was like, I need to find the money from somewhere. Let me, start this business, just so that I can stay home around him. Now, when I came into that industry where other women were selling it, and I was like, how are they selling these products? Because at the time, I was on Facebook. My dad was on there, my uncles were on there, and where my seniors were saying post this before and after of a white woman in a bikini. I felt very reluctant of what they're gonna see it, you know. And I realized wait, how do I build a business without sharing that kind of before and afters? And that's where it came from. So I found myself creating social media marketing content for these women that were joining my team. And then one company led to another. But I felt very, and I'm going to use this word, unfulfilled, because I was jumping from aloe vera products to weight loss coffee, weight loss teas. I mean, I was selling perfumes at one point. I then packed up and went to the clothing industry. This one is, I'm just catching my vitamin D here. Um, so I then went to the clothing business industry, which I absolutely loved because the owner of PLT, Umar Kamani, where he was getting his stock from, I was going there. And again, I was like, is it when I go to bed, I don't feel fulfilled. I've sold a cardigan, a coffee. It wasn't fulfilling. Then I realized I had some healing to do because 5 years ago I was diagnosed with cancer. And whilst I was getting my treatment, and again, it was yesterday was his death anniversary, is my granddad passed away. And I remember feeling like grieving this emotion. We then went into COVID, and I was like, something doesn't feel right. I was in this emotional turmoil. And I seen a post that said, are you feeling like this? And the ones that we do. And I was like, that's exactly how I'm feeling. So I started my healing journey then to realize that, wait, women need this. This makes sense why there's been 700 people on my team, but only like 50 of them, 100 of them have succeeded because we have these emotions, we have this baggage that we need to release. And that's when I got my training and came into the service side. Yeah,
Wow. You see,
yeah,
I've always known that you had an inspirational story, but today we get really into it. So,
yeah,
cancer, that's one of
yeah.
the hardest thing that someone can go through, and Alhamdulillah, you made it through.
Yeah.
What are the lessons that you've learned through that test that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you?
That life doesn't stop. That one thing that I got is when my granddad went into hospital, within 4 days he passed. And I remember going to see him and looking at him thinking, but I'm the one that's going through the chemo, I'm the one that's getting radiotherapy. Why are you in this bed? It should be me. And then I was like, no, he's leaving a legacy. What's yours? And it was that moment of, what is my legacy? Is it selling coffees? Is it selling clothing? What is it? And that's what made me realize that I'm not doing work for the Ahira, if that makes sense. I'm not helping women on a deeper level. Yes, I'm helping them earn an income, but with what, And that's when I realized, and I was like, no, no, something needs to change. SubhanAllah, I went into COVID, and that was the time that I really reflected because my mental health, the way I was feeling, it wasn't right. I got the healing, and then I came onto the other side, should I say? So yeah.
So, what would you tell the woman that comes to you or that's listening to this and that's feeling exactly how you felt when you were unfulfilled and when you had that lack of satisfaction, that lack of purpose, I want to say? What do you want to tell her? Because you were blessed to have this huge wake-up call.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you a disease that made you realize life is precious. I need to act right now. I need to leave a real legacy. But a lot of us, we're not going to go through that rock bottom that's going to shake us up. And unfortunately, many sisters are just going to be zombies for the rest of their lives because they don't get that wake up call. And I
Mm-hmm.
feel like our role is to show people you don't have to reach rock bottom to change your life. You can learn from my mistakes. You can learn from my struggles, my rock bottom. Hear about it, listen to my story, and take control of your life. So, what would you say to the woman who's coming to you or listening to this podcast and who's feeling stuck at the moment and struggling to take action?
I would say it's finding, and I said this before we jumped on the recording, is that it's all about finding you again. And I think the biggest thing is that, we look at graveyards, and we know that our journey really begins when we pass. And it's that legacy because realistically, 3 generations deep, they don't even know that you're going to exist unless you have a story. And that's the truth of it, where even when my dad, shares about his grandparents, and I'm like, okay, it's like I know them. But I mean, my mom's mum passed I think 6 months into when she got married. So none of us have met her, but we know her story. We know that she had breast cancer. She was a very strong woman, everything that she went through, but it's because she had a story. And for you to know what is my story that I'm leaving behind, right now, you're imprinting an image, a story around your children. What is that? Like my son come home last year and he was like, Mama, we millionaires because one of my friends' mom watches you on social media. And I was like, Inshallah, I was thinking this is part of the story. I need to make sure that it's a positive one. And I was like, which friend is it and what's her name? You know, but it's and the courage is within you. When we are looking around, Allah, the truth is, when I've been crying 4 in the morning, in a hospital bed, the truth is nobody comes to save you. And I say this all the time. Allah will send a person and be like, okay, this, you watching this today or listening to this today is Allah's message to you of, get up and do something. Doesn't have to be, award winning or whatever, even small steps. Because sometimes as coaches, we do say, let's change your life and let's do this, but it's the small steps that you need to take. So what is the first step that you need to take towards you and Allah, and again, look at your temperament. And I think that's one thing that I've learned a lot is about who we naturally are. Because I remember my coaches saying, go do journaling, and I could never click with it. And then when I learned about my temperament, I'm like, oh, that makes sense. I'm not a journaler. So that felt like a chore, but really finding your passion, finding your story that you want to leave. And then being on a mission with it, because that is who, like I said, when I was selling coffees, it didn't feel right. I made a lot of money, alhamdulillah, with coffees, but I'm like, okay, there's another weight loss coffee. But it wasn't fulfilling. I didn't go to sleep in bed feeling fulfilled. Whereas now, honestly, the messages that I get, and I'm like, subhanAllah, like, I did that, that it feels really, really good that even if I was to pass today, I know that I helped at least one woman in my life, to better hers. So yeah. Very mouthful questions that you
No, but that's
don't have
beautiful.
a stop button.
We're learning so much from your experiences and your struggles. And what you said about finding what works with your temperament, I think is really important.
Mhm.
And this is where it's good to pinpoint that certain healing tools are not going to work with you. And I feel like a lot of sisters will start this whole journey of inner work and they'll try the mass-made solutions. So you mentioned journaling, there's like meditation, there's like therapy, and there's different types of therapies, there's different types of coaching. And if one thing does not work with them, they'll just give up and think there's an issue with me and that
Mhm.
cannot be worked on. So tell me more about this idea of finding yourself and what are certain tools that worked with you that were not journaling, for example, that really allowed you to understand yourself better with the temperament that you have.
So I think one thing I've learned over the years, even outside of coaching, was this peer pressure of following the norm. For example, like everyone going for 10K months. It's like a norm. Like if you're not doing 5K, 10K months, you're not succeeding. And I remember one client coming to me saying, actually, I don't want to go for 10K months. I want to do nine. I want to do, so it was like a random number. And it's like, does it align? And I think it's really, really important that the journey you're on is aligning with your core values, because if it doesn't, you're not going to stick. And I think that was one thing with me, that when I was doing this journaling, it felt like a chore. Like, do you know, like even in Ramadan when I sit there, I created a planner, right? And this was before I knew my temperament. And I'm like, now it makes sense why the planner didn't work for me. It worked for others, but not for me. So for me, it's like sitting and doing dhikr, for example. I'm a visual person, so I need to have something on. Like even if I've got Surah Baqarah on and I'm reading what the text says and then really taking it in whilst I'm listening. This son is doing, I'm just like here for it.
Oh, soak it in.
Um, so it's just taking in what works. So you've got like EFT tapping, for example. And again, for example, if you've got a sore head and I'm telling you to EFT tap, it's going to make it worse, physical pain. So it's really navigating and really trying out different avenues. And I do agree with what you said there, that sometimes when one avenue doesn't work, we shut off everything else. We're like, no, I've already tried something similar like that. It didn't work for me, so I'm not going ahead. And I get it, it's an investment, but we need to, it's like sometimes we are reciting and reciting and it's not working, but it doesn't mean that the Quran or the ayah doesn't work. It's just in divine timing that you have to allow it. And I think the important thing that I always say, that if you're not willing to change, then nothing's going to change. I think I learned that the hard way. That sometimes we get stuck in our own ways, or we get stuck in our own mind, thinking, like I was like, the clothing world is for me. I love, especially winter. Winter was my season of selling clothes, but it's just that it didn't feel right. Like I would get a kick out of selling the clothes, but when I went to bed, like I said, I still felt unfulfilled. And if that's you in your journey right now, and you're like, well, I've tried journaling, it didn't work. I tried meditation, it didn't work. I tried listening to podcasts, for example, it didn't work. Really explore with a coach like yourself or even another coach and be like, right, what other techniques do you have that I could possibly try? But one thing that I would say is I've learned a lot about shadow healing, and it's going to the core. So sometimes, doing the feminine energy or masculine energy or NLP is very at the beginning. So if you go to your shadow and be like, okay, well, why isn't it working? And really work on your shadow, and then, Inside Out. I watched the movie. Have you watched the movie Inside Out?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
It's my favorite word to say now, Inside Out, but it's literally that. So yeah.
Yeah, and that movie I think is a representation of the awareness that we now have on mental health.
Yes.
We didn't have Inside Out. We had those toxic Disney movies where the princess always wanted to be rescued, and it put us in this victim mentality as women, subhanAllah. But yeah, my daughter, we've watched all of them together, and it really allows the kids to understand that there's several parts of them that need to
Mhm.
be heard, and that those parts represent needs that they have, and that they can cater to their needs themselves as well, subhanAllah. So this was an interesting cartoon to watch, but to come back on what you said, there's so much that you said that resonated with me, especially the part on legacy. So knowing what it is that you want to leave behind, and that all of us will be forgotten at some point, but we have an opportunity to make a difference, especially in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Mhm.
So sometimes it's really difficult to embody that courage though, of being the change maker and deciding I'm going to break the cycle in my family, the cycle of trauma, the cycle of toxic behaviors, and unhealthy patterns, and I'm going to be the woman who says that's enough, and also the cycle of generational poverty.
Mhm.
And you spoke about feminine and masculine energy and different healing tools. I feel like one of my biggest challenge when I started my journey was that I was very much in my masculine because I was ultra independent. And this is something that you and we spoke about off mic, like this struggle of letting go of control because we were put in a situation where we had to take care of ourselves and the struggle of relying on other people. And I think it's even more difficult to let go of that side of us because it's the side of us that allowed us to survive through life events that were really difficult. Is that something that you talk about with your clients as well, feminine and masculine energy?
Yeah, yeah, it's really important because and again, prior to knowing about family, masculine and feminine energy, and again, it was discovered when seen you the first time at the retreat. Um, I was honoring my wounded masculine energy. I was like, listen, I'm a workaholic. I work through my pain. I wear this crown, and I was really proud of it too, until I had this um what's the word, a very intense conversation with yourself to realize, wait, actually, that's not healthy. That is not healthy. Turning your pain into power, yes, but in a healthy way. Working through your pain in a very, because even now, like I've gone through so much, and I would shut off everything and I would channel that, energy into my work, and I'll create something new. And yes, it's fantastic, but it's also unhealthy, and it leads to burnout, again, not feeling wholesome, not being able to receive, because yes, I was creating amazing things, but then I was also in my wounded masculine, not being able to receive at the same time. So it's really important to balance it. And again, sometimes us women, even successful ones, don't know how to balance it because we're stuck in this rut, should I say, of doing the same thing. And we're like, if a cycle works, leave it, and sometimes you have to break the cycle in order for you to receive. So yeah.
Yeah, subhanAllah. what has worked for you to shift from the unhealthy masculine to more of a healthy masculine, but also balanced with feminine energy? Because I know that a lot of women are going to listen to this and think that sounds like me. I struggle to let go of control. And when I am triggered by personal events, my distraction is to engage in a lot of work. And that is praised by society.
Mhm.
Being a workaholic, even for Muslim women nowadays in the UK, that's where I noticed that. In France, it might be slightly different. But in the UK, hardworking Muslim women are praised.
Mhm.
They are put on a pedestal. Oh, my daughter is a doctor, my daughter is a pharmacist, she's the first of her class or whatever it is. And I think that's a very Asian thing, to be honest. In North Africa, we're not so much into studies and like status when it comes to professional life. But how do you break that cycle? Like, what has worked for you in terms of behaviors and practices?
So I think the first activity that you gave me on the retreat was, do you remember the coffee? When he was like, allow him to make you a coffee, and I found it so hard. I found it so. I remember him asking, saying, "Ash, do you want a coffee?" And I was like, I stuttered to say yeah, and even now the feeling is like, oh my, how did I struggle to say yeah? So I was like, I'll make it, and then he was like, no, no, I'll do it. I was like, okay then. And just was like, why are you finding it so hard to receive? You know? And when I went exploring, and then even I heard like, for example, I've had an operation on my leg, and I couldn't sit for 2 weeks on the sofa and do nothing. And then I got vertigo where I couldn't even walk because the room was just spinning. And I was like, actually, Allah is teaching you to just sit there and be able to receive. And
Mm,
even switching off work, like the laptop's there, not being able to touch it, I'd be like, no. And I think now it's just recognizing that why can I not sit in silence? Why can I not sit with my thoughts? What are the thoughts that start coming up if there is silence in the room? And being conscious and aware. And again, I went to Turkey, so the whole events situation was happening, the riots. And I went for a massage in Turkey, and this was in August. And she said she brought another lady in, and she said, "Can you tell her to rest because I'm trying to massage her and she's very tense." And I'm like, "No, I'm not." I'm like, "No, I'm not. I'm actually relaxed." She said, "No, you're not. You're very tense." And I'm like, "Actually, just relax." And even now, even though I've done so much work on it, we're on autopilot with this wounded energy. So the one thing that I would recognize is how long can you sit in silence? Even at traffic lights, do you grab your phone straight away and start quickly checking social media messages? Like, why can you not sit in silence? What is it that you're trying to run away from? And even if you do sit in silence, what are the feelings and thoughts that are coming up for you? And I think now, I remember again in June it was I hurt my ankle, and I was like, yes, I'm just gonna do nothing. I really honored it. I honored it. And I was like, and even now with my cycle and learning about my room and cycle, the week that I have off in my calendar, I actually don't do work. I just sit there and I'm like, do you want to watch TV? Okay, let's go watch TV. Do you want and I really honor the time with me, even if it means we do nothing. And but it's taken me a lot to get to there, if that makes sense.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, 100%. And I love all of these tips. And I can't believe the retreat has created so much change in you. I'm so happy to hear that. And for people who are listening and wondering what retreat is that, like, was it a couple of years ago already or last year?
Last
Sometime
year, I,
last year, July, I was invited to do a speech on feminine and masculine energy in a retreat about relationship. And this is where Ashii got a lot of the things that she just shared. So inviting stillness and uh, being content with resting, not just being content, but allowing yourself to rest. And I want
yeah.
what you said about the massage part is so funny because I went to Morocco with my best friend recently and we got a whole package like hammam package with a massage and there was one masseuse taking care of her and one taking care of me and I was the only one speaking the language obviously. And the masseuse told me in our language, your friend is so tense. Please tell her to relax so I can actually massage her. And my friend was like, yeah, that's just how I am all the time. So for the sisters who are watching or listening to this, I want to invite you to pay attention to your body right now. How
Mhm.
much tension are you holding onto without even realizing it?
Yeah.
And one of the reason why I always start my group sessions, my group coaching sessions with breathing and dua and grounding in the present moment is because I've noticed that a lot of the time we are extremely tensed without even noticing it. And it's all about this autopilot mode that we are in and that we struggle to even create self-awareness around. So I think practices like meditation, mindfulness, and just being more intentional on a daily basis are also amazing practices on top of the silence bit and the resting bit. And I know for a lot of people, it is going to be challenging at the beginning. Like you said, it takes time to become that woman who slows down, but it's not impossible.
No,
And
no.
as long as you have realistic expectations on yourself, like don't start with, I'm going to meditate 30 minutes in the morning after Fajr, right? You're setting yourself up for failure if you do that. Just start with a couple of minutes of setting an intention at the beginning of the day of what you want to be more conscious of on that day. And I make my clients do that, and it's life-changing for them. Just this small habit of every morning set an intention for yourself. What do you want to practice on that day? Which quality do you want to embody today? What do you want to nurture within yourself today? That's reconnecting with the feminine side, and that does wonders. So thank you so much for sharing that story. I think it's so interesting how the body shows us exactly what we need and what we're doing wrong, but we're not taught how to read those signs as well.
Even I think one of the activities that I first ever recognized it in, and I thought, oh, it's just my mind, was actually just hold a blank mind, just full black. And it just wouldn't happen. I'm like, there's too many thoughts. And I was like, no, no, concentrate. And it wouldn't be black, it would be white. But I couldn't hold a blank mind. Like there was just so much going on. And I thought, oh, it's just an activity that I can't do. But now being knowing that I do what I know, I'm like, no, that was just your body not being able to slow down, to shut off, and to sit in silence. So and again, what you said about the meditation, where I got told that, do 20 minutes of meditation, it felt like an eternity, sitting there, and I'm like, I can't do this. But it's, yeah, baby steps. And this is why I said, like, sometimes as coaches, being mindful of, okay, this person is in survival mode, their body is on autopilot in a negative way. How do we slowly turn it around rather than, giving big jumps? Which again, it's for our minds, it's like, no, that's danger, don't do that. So I love what you just said then.
Yeah, because big jumps are never long lasting.
Hmm.
That's the problem. And we want consistent action that will be forever
Yeah.
rather than incredible uh, progress that will only last a couple of weeks. And
Mhm.
then if you fail again after that huge progress, the story in your head that's telling you that you're not capable of making changes, that you're not worthy of good things, that story is going to be confirmed. And that's why it's really important to be mindful of how much change you impose on yourself at the beginning of your healing journey and throughout your healing journey. What are the consequences of doing this work, Ashii? Because I know for myself and I know for my clients, but what are some of the changes that you've seen in yourself and in your clients when they start working on themselves?
I think I always have to say this, that sometimes we have this thing of once I do the work, like especially when we see it's 8 weeks program, 12 weeks program, 6 months mastermind, however long it is, and we think, okay, well, when I come off that, that's it, I don't need any more work. We're always a working project, and whatever we need in that given time. So it's like it might be right now you might need emotional healing. But once that phase is over, it might be okay, you need to now work on your relationships. And I think with me, I had a very leaky energy, which in my physical body was my leaky gut. having IBS, struggling with abdominal pain all the time, putting on weight and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, well, what is my body telling me? But then I realized I had no boundaries. I was overdoing it. If a client signed up for 90 minutes, I would offer like 3 hours instead and stuff like that. And what I saw that when I started to do the inner work, should I say, and I started looking at where my energy is being leaked, and I started to do the, again, emotional resistance, looking at my shadow, looking at my feminine, masculine, and especially the wounded side. I saw an impact, not just on me, on my business, but also my clients. And which just sounds crazy, but the type of client that I was attracting. Because previously, whatever I was feeling, I was attracting that kind of client, you know. And I was like, oh my God, this, like, whatever she needed, I needed too. And it was, so as soon as I did the work, no, and I'm still doing the work, but I see a shift in my clients as well, that they're enforcing boundaries. Like, one of them had a breakthrough the other day. She was holding her grandparents' shadow, and she's been saying it, actually, I'm stuck, I'm stuck. And then on the call, and we were just having a Q&A, and she had the breakthrough aha moment on the call. And I'm like, oh my God, like, things happen. So when you do the work yourself, it's definitely a domino impact on other people, and especially with those that you work with. And I think your content bounces off it. And I know it's like, oh my God, I just need to produce content. And I'm going to say this out loud: absolutely hate ChatGPT. And if you're using it, please don't. But your content pieces is your emotional stuff that you're going through, your limiting beliefs, because people relate to that. You guys, imagine if I was a robot today talking about emotional, you wouldn't be able to relate to that. Yeah, definitely. It's an all-rounder impact is the answer. That was a very long-winded answer. Sorry about that.
No, no, absolutely. And I always talk about my mom when I talk about the changes that I've made in my life and how it impacted my environment. Because I had a very conflictual relationship with her before I started my real healing journey. And I had no expectation whatsoever on my mom's behaviors changing when I started working on myself. But subhanAllah, like she's evolved so much. And one of the things that recently happened is that one of my sister got divorced. And when I got divorced 10 years ago, it was the end of the world for my mom. Not only she didn't want it to happen, but she was in full denial and she was not supportive at all with me. But when my sister broke the news to her, with a lot of anxiety because she had seen how she reacted for my divorce, my mom was so understanding and so supportive. She was like, "Don't worry about it. It happens. It's life. Are you okay? Do you need any support?" Of course, she was freaking out. And then she picked up the phone and called me and was like, "What's going on?" But she didn't show that to my sister. Whereas I got all of that type of behaviors and it was really hard for me. So seeing that my mom has done so much work on herself without going to therapy, without seeking coaching, without reading self-help books, but maybe hopefully just picking up on the things that I have worked on as well, the things that I have benefited from, is so rewarding, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. And this is all from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like Allah will change the condition of people if He wants to. We are only not even actors, but we're just tools for
Yeah,
him to do good.
yeah.
Uh, and this is just an example of how people can change around you, but it should never be the intention though. Like, don't start working on yourself with the secret intention that your husband is gonna change and become something else or someone else, and he's gonna be exactly what you want him to be, or your mom is gonna change, or your dad is gonna change, or your siblings. No, work on yourself for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, also to be a good inspiration for your kids, but do it mainly for Allah and for yourself, basically.
I think that's the hardest part though, because when you look at the lot of whys of why do you want to join this program, or why are you starting this healing, they come last. They come last. I want to start because I'm having this problem, or my business is not working, or got an issue with my children, whatever the case. But it's like, okay, but what about you? What about you? And it's very, and even the commitment to starting the therapy, the coaching, or the business even, they will less likely start because it's for them. If it's for their sibling, if it's for their husband, partner, parents, their children, they will do it like that. And
Yeah.
it's like, and again, it's all about programming. And me and my sister talk about it a lot. That when we look at our generation, we're like, they're all like robots. And it's like, are we the generation of breakers? Like, is it me and you that have, you know, we've stepped out and did something that wasn't the norm? Because they're all fit in this mold, and it's like, where's your identity? Where is what do you want to do? It's like, okay, I'm doing this because my parents said. But it's like, where's your happiness? And again, that's where like this identity crisis happen, where women don't feel like they belong, you know. So yeah, it's really important that if you do start, do it for you, because you're the best project that you're gonna ever work on, and you only get one shot at life, so make it
Absolutely.
a
Yeah.
yeah.
And when you keep on putting other people first, you build up that resentment,
Mhm,
and one day or another you are going to explode.
mhm,
And that's not going to be pretty to witness for the people around you, but also for yourself. So instead of waiting for that to happen, work on learning how to prioritize yourself in a way that is not selfish. I think
mhm,
that's one of the biggest misconception about inner work, setting boundaries, like creating something for yourself, is this idea that am I going to be perceived as a selfish woman if I do that? Uh,
mhm,
and it doesn't have to be the case. There's really balance to be found in how we do things. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made us our main blessing. Like my body, my mental health is a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's my responsibility to take care of myself because if I don't feed my soul, mind, and body, how am I supposed to be of service to others? And I think that's the thing that a lot of women don't understand is that if you don't take care of yourself, you can't, in the long term, take care of everyone else. So if you truly want your kids to have a healthy mother past 30, 40 years old, 50, like, you have to take care of yourself. Don't just give everything right now and then burn out and and then be ridden with all of these illnesses because you're not taking care of your body and your mind, and then regret it all because that's exactly what happened to our parents' generation. Our moms sacrificed absolutely everything for us, and we hear it all the time. I did everything for you guys. I could have pursued my studies. I could have done this and that, but I sacrificed everything. And it's like, but I don't want to exist feeling like a burden in this life. Why didn't you just do everything that you wanted to do? So let me make sure that I will do what I think is good for me without neglecting my obligations as a wife, mother, sister, and daughter. And that is 100% possible. We need to stop feeding this idea that it's not possible.
No, I think when we have that idea of it's not possible, or especially the excuses that we make, again, it comes back down to being conscious to be like, okay, well, where does that stem from? You know, are they my excuses, or is it something that I've been hearing that I've embodied as my own? And where's the willpower? Like, where there's a will, there's power. Where's your willpower if you want to start something? And I think it's just like seeing women how much they're into personal development now. Again, it's so beautiful because a lot of women are, but in the work that we do as coaches, and even if like when I see especially marriage coaches, parent coaches, I'm like, it's such a big amana, and it's such a big, like, Allah gave you guys a vision to, you know, be a coach as a parent, as a marriage coach, to help you know, families in our ummah. So we need to make sure that we are filling our cups in, you know, we are filling our cups in with the right knowledge, seeking the right knowledge and skill set to making sure we're having that domino impact, and breaking, you know, generational curses, should I say. So yeah.
100%. And I feel like we could talk about this for hours. SubhanAllah, it's been almost an hour now, Ashii. So I'd love to know where can people find you and how can they work with you if they're interested.
So you can find me on Instagram at InnerWork101. And inshallah, I'm gonna say this out loud. We're gonna have an event in November, which I would love for you to be. So I'll discuss this with you offline. But it was supposed to happen in August, but because of the riots and the situation in the UK, which wasn't right at the time, so Allah said, listen, slow down a little bit again. And this is when I went to Turkey and I couldn't slow down. But yeah, if you want to find me on social media, I'm on there. But anything like what we've discussed today, I think it's really you've got an amazing coach here. But definitely work on that wounded energy, just like I did. It's really it's not just for you and your business, it's for you as a mom, you as a wife, you as a person, which is really, really important because sometimes we really do normalize wounded energy. And it's not serving, especially when it shows up in our body in survival mode, it's not doing us any good. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Ashi, for your presence, your knowledge. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you, and I'd love to have you back to talk more about everything that you can share with us, inshallah.
Inshallah, thank you so much.
You're welcome.